So Vikings has been top notch the second half of season 4, and episode 19, On the Eve, continues that trend. The episode opens up in a powerful way. Basically, Tovi is following these strange travelers who enter through the gates of Kattegat, and she notices that they seem suspicious. They notice her, and they start fighting. So these men have been sent to sort of scout out the area for Eigel and sort of see what the city's weaknesses were. So Tovi basically unloads her crossbow, kills a few of them, and fighting ensues. A little skirmish. But later on in the episode, it pans back to Kattegat and it shows Lagatha and Astrid, and they hear a horn sound, and Lagatha says they're coming, prepare the defenses. So they go out to the wall, and there's this massive force of Eigel attacking the front of Kattegat's gates, and the fighting ensues, and there's death on all sides, and people are trying to cross over the defenses. But Lagatha turns back for a moment as she blocks an arrow with her shield and realizes that there's a second force coming by sea. So she basically tells Tovi, okay, hold the wall. Me and Astrid need to go secure the other area. So they fight their way down, killing all these sea raiders that had come up from the sea. And they get to the right outside the hall, I believe. And there's this big pile of oil that they have there for a defense, and Lagatha just throws a torch in, and all these men start catching on fire, and Eigel and his men get surrounded by Lagatha on that side and other shield maidens on the other side. So his siege is a failure, but of course the action is phenomenal. The whole set piece of Kattegat was used wonderfully. The wall, everything about the battle at Kattegat was amazing. And the aftermath's pretty great too, because we get to see Lagatha basically put Eigel on this roasting spit and torture him. And she keeps asking him, why did you do this? Who are you working for? And Eigel eventually gives up because his wife's in there. He gives up the information, of course, that King Harold was the one who hired him. And Lagatha doesn't seem too fazed by this. She seems like she already knew this. But she knows it for sure now that he was the one who caused it. So it'll be interesting to see how she'll treat King Harold and and his brother whenever they get back. So speaking of King Harold, across the sea, he had a little adventure in the camp of the Vikings. He regrets not killing his princess, the one who he wanted to become king for. And so he goes over to talk to her and her husband. He introduces himself, and then he, chucks an axe in her husband's head, cleaves his head with an axe, and it's a very brutal scene, but it's very Harold Finehair thing to do. And then later on in the episode, she seduces him, and they start making love. But unbeknownst to him, she has a knife, and she pulls it out and tries to kill him. Luckily, his brother, Halfdan, comes in and just slices her in half, and the blood splatters all over Harold. And Harold's the wiser for it now, not to trust women. But it seems like out of the two, Halfdan has more common sense. Honestly, you kill somebody's husband with an axe, of course she's going to try to kill you. But it was actually kind of comical to see Harold's face whenever Halfdan came in and cut her in half with the axe. It was hilarious to see that. And I really did actually like the plot involving Harold and this princess who he's tried so hard to please and wanted to become king of all of Norway for. And it was cool to see that sort of end. Floki has a little storyline too before they go into the big battle, which is the best part of this episode. Floki's wife Helga, she loses the girl. She runs away. Floki tracks her down, and he says, "I'm sorry you hate us." And then he brings her back to the camp, and she's very fearful going into the tent with Helga. But I don't know how I feel about the whole Floki Helga kid storyline, but it may go places, and it was interesting to see like Floki's lighter side and him doing that. But really, when On the Eve succeeds the most, the Kattegat stuff was great, but it succeeds the most in the battle at the end. But before we get to that, actually, I had forgotten. I want to talk about Aethelwulf. Aethelwulf's whole plot, his whole arc this episode is really great. So basically, the episode in England, it opens with him sort of, talking to his father again about the plans for the battle. And Ecbert basically tells Judith, hey, you need to get with your husband again. I'm like a dying animal. And she goes and she sees him talking to Alfred and his other son about how they shouldn't be scared and how he's going to that. And he actually tells Alfred that his father, Athelstan, his real father, is someone to be proud of. And Judith has this moment where you can tell she genuinely loves Aethelwulf again. And she gives him a kiss before he leaves, of course, to battle. And Aethelwulf, he's been such a great character, especially the past few weeks, because he went from being a character everybody absolutely hated to, at least as far as me, I can sympathize with Aethelwulf. And so setting him up in this way and then seeing what happens to him in the battle is a fine send-off. It was a fine way to, send off this character. So, speaking of the battle, I'm sorry I got a little bit sidetracked with talking about Aethelwulf, but I felt like I needed to give him his due time. The great battle happens. But before it does, Ivar and Bjorn have an opportunity to sort of scout out this area that the battle is going to be on. And basically, Ivar convinces him, hey, we can't just fight in a shield wall. We have to use this terrain to our advantage. So they go out there, they scout out the area, and lo and behold, Aethelwulf and the army of Wessex arrive in droves, lots of them. And they play cat and mouse. The Vikings split into two groups. Aethelwulf follows one, then follows the other, and he keeps doing this for a while. Then one group convinces him to follow them to the woods. They open fire, get a few kills with their archers, and then Aethelwulf basically says, hey, screw this, we're just going to go burn their boats. So he heads into this valley to go through the valley and just burn their boats and ignore the Vikings. Well, what he didn't know is there was a ton of Vikings there waiting for him in the front, and archers on the hills on both sides, raining down hell basically on both sides of him, and Vikings to the back. So now Aethelwulf's in this valley, surrounded by Vikings on both entrances, with archers firing down. And basically the episode ends by cutting to black and him saying, charge. So, that cliffhanger is a little bit annoying, but that doesn't diminish any of the storylines in this episode. On the Eve was definitely one of the strongest episodes of Season 4 of Vikings that I have seen so far. Everything worked. The whole Kattegat plot with Egil worked wonderfully. Seeing Lagertha, Astrid, and Tovi just take over and kill everybody was phenomenal. Harold's storyline was fun and entertaining, and it was kind of funny to see how things ended with the princess trying to kill him and Halfdan having to save him. Floki's storyline was great. Is emotional. As short as it was, we got to see Floki's lighter side, but ultimately it ended with that battle and just the way Ivar tricked them with his tactics, tricked Aethelwulf. It was amazing to see, but also I was talking to one of my friends. It was also very emotional to see because, like I had said, we had grown to love Aethelwulf in the past few episodes, and even in this episode, we had even more reason to love him. And then to see him sort of taken advantage of by Ivar, it felt good, but it also felt bad. So I really loved everything about this episode. On the Eve was one of my favorite episodes of Vikings ever, and I'd had to give it a 9.7 out of 10. So did you like this episode? Comment below what your theories are for the finale. Be sure to check out my podcasting I'm going to be doing with my friend and I, Sam, on Vikings. This has been Jonesy from Joneser TV, bringing you the review for On the Eve. Give it a 9.7 out of 10. Signing off.